Hi, and welcome to the BookishStitcher podcast. My name is Jeanette. You can find me on Ravelry, Instagram, and Goodreads as BookishStitcher all one word. I hope you guys have had a lovely week since I last talked to you. It has been just so hot here in Texas that I'm probably glistening and I've got the air on and just trying to cool off. I've got short sleeves trying to, just to keep cool and not go outside much because it's just been so hot. But I do have some knitting to show with you guys and a whole bunch of spinning because, as you probably know, it's still Tour de Fleece, and that's what has been taking up most of my time. And so the finished objects that I have are little hats because I've been making some preemie hats for the retreat that I'm going to in just a couple of days, yay. So this first one I finished. You saw the beginnings of this last week. It's a white hat with little red V's. It's a tiny bit of color work, not just a little random pattern I did. And then this one you haven't seen because I started it this week and finished it this week. It's a little preemie hat, and I wanted something that was mostly red because we're doing the read along right now with the lovely Pinhook and Needles ladies and another podcast that I can't remember right now. I'll try to remember to link it in the show notes. But this is a little baby hat that I just kind of improvised. I did it mostly in the red and then added in some of the white stripes, and then I did a little kind of umbilical cord. I've knit hats similar to this, and I think there's one called like the umbilical cord hat, but all you do is you make like a 2 to 4 inch, probably about 4 inches of an I cord, and then you tie a knot in it and give it a cute little thing. And I think this is adorable. And I don't know that I'll officially enter it, but I really wanted to have something red so that I could join in on the read along. And this was great because it got 2 scraps, a white and a red, out of my scrap bin. So yay, and little preemie hats. They're so cute. And I don't know if you can see, like, they're tiny. I was a preemie when I was born, but neither of my kids were preemies. They both were, well, I guess my daughter was pretty average, but my son was a pretty big baby, and they both, were way past their due dates. Well, not way, over a week past, like 9 or 10 days. But yeah, so that's about the size. It could basically, barely fits my fist. So cute. And I'm excited to give these along with the other hats. So I have the stack already in my suitcase, so the hats for the homeless that I knit, and these are the preemie ones. I had hoped to get some more done, but I'm just not going to be able to because I found out that one of the classes I'm taking has a whole bunch of homework that needs to be done for the class. So I've kind of gone to working on that. But before I show you, well, I'll go ahead and show you the homework first because it's kind of extremely boring. But it is a finishing class. And so we need to knit up a ton of swatches. And I was trying to think, what am I gonna do with these afterwards? Because I don't wanna just throw stuff away. And I was trying to think of a yarn that I had in my scrap bin that I could use. So I got some piece fleece that was left over from, I think this was I made myself, I forget what the pattern was, but it had cables down the front and a hood and a kangaroo pocket. And it's great, it's short sleeve, so it's great to wear in winter here because you can layer something really light under it and then have a warmer short sleeve sweater. That's about all you need here. You don't need a long sleeve sweater, hardly ever. And so this was left over from that because I think I had several skeins of it. And this is one of the swatches that is almost done. I just need to kind of bind off. But after I have used these for the class, I'm going to felt them because piece fleece is miraculously wonderful with felting. And then I'm going to either turn them into coasters, or I could cut them up and do them into like little bracelets or something like that for Christmas presents for like my kids, like my daughter's dance teacher or swim lessons teacher or something like that, so that they can be reused, because I don't want swatches just sitting around my house or forever, and I don't want to throw them in the trash and be wasteful. So I really think that would be a great reuse of the class stuff that I need to do. So I still have a lot of swatches to make for that class. I think this is the most homework I've ever had to do for a class. And then the last thing is something I really, after I finished the preemie hats, I wanted something that you know, was fairly close or didn't have a ton left on it. It was on bigger needles, and I really wanted something from 2016 and older width. So I went searching, and in my Mrs. Brown's bag, my Matrushka, I found my River Mist, and this is a pattern that my friend Sarah, the Canadian knitter, gifted to me last 2016, I think, and I believe in March for my birthday in 2016. I'm knitting it out of 2 colors of Madeline Tosh. And when I cast it on last year, I had just cast it on. I just had a tiny bit of the pink. So after I finished the hats, I picked this up, and it's all really bunched on the needle, so you can't tell just how enormous it is. But I'm doing it out of a pink and a brown. And as you can see, I finished up the pink section this week, and then added in the brown, and then started the next pink section. But there are only, I think I have 4 more pattern repeats, and then I'm done. So each row definitely uses up a lot of yarn, and it's worsted weight, so it goes fairly quickly. And I believe this is going to be a Christmas present for my daughter's kindergarten teacher, if she gets the kindergarten teacher. I'm hoping she will. There are 2 kindergarten teachers at the school she's going to, and it's the one that my son went to, or is going to as well. And one of them doesn't ever, even if it's cold, they'll wear like a heavy coat or something, but they don't ever wear anything that looks knitted. And the other one, the other teacher, is always like, has her hair in a knitted hat. I don't think she's knit them, but she buys them from stores, like, you know, pieces that look knitted. And so I think that she would really appreciate this, and I think it's definitely her color. So hopefully that will be the teacher she gets. I won't know till August. I can't believe, can you believe that summer, if you're in the northern hemisphere, that summer is almost over and it's almost time for school again. It's insane to me. So yeah. And I did a whole bunch of other knitting on stuff, kind of getting it ready since I'm going to the retreat in a couple of days. I was trying to think what kind of, you know, if you're a knitter, you're always planning your knitting that you're going to take to something anywhere you're going. If it's, you know, on a vacation away with the family, or a vacation to go see some family, or a yarn festival, or a retreat, or whatnot, you kind of always think about what knitting you're bringing. And I have been neglecting socks for a very long time. I just have not been in a sock mood. So I decided that that's all I'm going to bring to this, so in hopes of finishing some stuff up. Just having some coffee. And I kind of let it get cold so that I could have kind of not hot coffee, because it's so hot right now. And I'm going to bring my husband's socks that are almost done, that I'm doing on DPNs. Those like have just some of the foot left on the second sock. And then I'm going to bring the socks that I'm doing for my son. I cast on the toe for that. That was part of the, so on my husband's sock, I was getting it past the gusset so I can just knit out the rest of the foot at the retreat. On my son's second sock, I was getting the toe cast on, because that one is toe up, so I can just knit up the heel and through the cuff and everything. And then I have the socks for my mother-in-law that I'm going to bring, and I might bring another sock in progress that's a giant tube for my husband. So I think those are the 4 socks I'm going to bring. I don't know if I will get all of them finished. It just kind of depends on, you know, sometimes when you really want yourself to work on a certain thing and that's all you bring, you knit less. So who knows if I will get inspired and knit a ton on the socks and finish them, or if by just bringing socks, and socks are not currently something I'm really being drawn to, if I'll just knit less. And I am bringing some books. I'm actually weirdly looking forward to, I know we are staying at an Airbnb because we found one that is extremely, extremely cheap, like cheaper than a skein of yarn per night, which is awesome because we're a few of us sharing a house. And so you know, cheaper than like a skein of commercial yarn, not like indie dyed, like cheaper than a skein of commercially dyed yarn. And so we're going to be back at the house, and I'm going to have, you know, some reading time before I go to bed every night, because we're all introverts that are staying in this place, so I know that we'll all want some downtime at night. So I'm planning what books I'm bringing to But yeah, I'm just getting really excited about that. And if you're going, I forgot to say, I've said before, but I am going to SSK. If you're going, and I've been to this one in the past, I didn't get to go last year because circumstances and stuff, so I'm very excited to go this year and see friends that I haven't gotten to see in a couple of years. And I know last year I really missed it when I wasn't there, so I'm really excited that I got to go this year. And then I'm staying off campus with friends, and it's going to be really great. And so on that note, I will not be podcasting next week because that will be a travel day for me coming home. And so I'm just going to take that easy, and then I will podcast the following Sunday, which should be the 30th of July. I'm just looking at I actually have a Russian calendar. It's all in Russian, and the days are done in different order than they are done in America, like when they start the week and things. So I've got to kind of do some math in my head as I look over it. But I love that calendar. It has different pictures from different places in Russia. But anyways, I believe it's the 30th. And yeah, that will be an episode with tons of stuff talking about the retreat. I'll have some enabling because my mom so sweetly was like, hey, do you want some Christmas in July? And she's like, I know you're going to the retreat and it's going to have a market. Do you want some of your Christmas money in July to have for that? And I was like, that would be awesome. So my mom's just such a sweetheart. I love her so much. And she's always thinking of like, you know, thinking of stuff that I don't even think of, like to surprise me. She was like, oh, Christmas in July, here you go. But yeah, so that's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to going and doing that. And then when I podcast on the 30th, I will have a lot of stuff to share with you, and Tour de Fleece will be over. So speaking of Tour de Fleece, I have some spinning to show you. So this is my Three Waters farm that I talked about, Three Waters Farms, I believe. I talked about last week that I was almost done spinning. So the singles are done. And it's these lovely browns and oranges and shades of blue and then some white. And it's spun up very nicely. I definitely made it into very thin pencil roving so that I knew that it would spin fairly consistently because it was an older braid. And I'm excited to ply it up and see what it will look like. I'm just going to 2-ply this. For those of you that aren't spinners, that probably means nothing, but it just means that you take it and bake it in half so that the colors will sometimes be together, sometimes they'll be barber pulling, it just depends. So there's that. And then the next thing I did as far as Tour de Fleece goes is I plied my Ren Ollie bump, and I did this as a chain ply, or some of you will call it Navajo. And I did that because I wanted to keep the colors together. So as you can kind of tell, there's a white, there's an orange, there's a navy, and there is a, oh, this is a good spot to see, there is a turquoise. And it's very soft and lovely. And I didn't have to like go over this huge thing of how to, I hadn't chain plied in a while, but I didn't have to go through this huge like, oh, how do I do this? So I just kind of remembered it right away, and it was great. This hasn't had its bath yet, so it still needs that, but it was, oh, I forgot to do the math. I think it's about 150 yards of a DK worsted. I have gotten, when I first started spinning 2 years ago, I was very much wanting to get to where I could get as much, you know, yardage as possible or meterage as possible out of everything. And even though I don't knit with lace weight, so I have no idea why I was concerned with that. But I have since been like, I'm just gonna spin whatever the fiber and my hands work out to, and I'm just gonna be chill about it. I'm not going to say that if I can't produce that, I'm not a good spinner, because that's not true, and that's like a lie I was telling myself, is that until you can do this, you're not a good spinner. That I need to not measure myself against, you know, other people, other spinners, and just kind of tell myself, this is where you're happy, this is where you're good. If I really wanted to focus and maybe take a class on, you know, spinning certain ways and things like that, then I probably could spin, you know, a super thin lace weight. But I'm happy with this now, and I'm very glad that I've come to be happy with whatever I spin. So this is a 3-ply, and it will be a great, I don't know if it's enough for say a baby jacket, maybe a newborn jacket. It's definitely enough for a bigger hat. It might be enough for a jacket if I did like a short sleeve, like a baby bolero. I bet it would be enough for that, and it would be a super cute gift for a newborn baby boy or girl, I guess. But then after I finished applying that, I started on some October House, and I just brought this down because it's almost done, but I have this and then like another little one or two of these, and this is what some people have different names for them, and hopefully I don't get fiber in my coffee, but I take the entire braid, unbraid it, and then pull strands from the top all the way down and go in ever decreasing smaller strands till I get these little, I call them pencil roving. It's just a way to prep the fiber, and I've talked about this before on the podcast, so if you've already heard this, I apologize. But for anybody who, because I haven't spun a lot this year, so if you're newer to the podcast, then you might not know that I do this, but this is what I call pencil roving, which is where I make it into little things, and it's easier for me to spin and just get it consistent. I can spin straight from the braid, but I notice that if my mind drifts, then it won't be as consistent as where I make this. If my mind starts to drift, because I do often listen to audiobooks or such things while I'm spinning, so my mind will kind of stray off towards that, and I want to maintain consistency in my fiber, so these help me personally. Some people might not even need that, but if it works for you, that's awesome, and this really works well for me. So this October House color is called Mornings in Paris, I believe, and I've been noticing, as some of you, I think I've talked about this on the podcast, maybe not this year even, but I absolutely love learning languages so much. With reading and knitting, that's kind of or reading in the fiber arts, I should say. It's kind of a very big love of mine, passion of mine, and I've always been into learning languages since I was in high school, and I've noticed that I have not been practicing hardly at all. I would say before I started the podcast, I practiced a ton, and I would say, according to the definition of a polyglot, I would say that I was one, because I think it's 4 or 5 languages very well, and I definitely think I had that, but then as I started podcasting, I kind of dropped that off to where a whole bunch of my languages fell off from being pretty fluent to tourist fluent, which is what I would call it now, or what I used to call it a year ago, and now I haven't practiced it in so long, except for Japanese, that I don't even know if I would call myself tourist fluent. And so I was just getting really into okay, I need to practice my languages more. I really love this. I have 9 languages that, I'm current, well, I guess I don't count English, although I'm always learning new words in English. If you're a reader, you constantly, but anyways, I have 9 languages that I'm at various points of fluency. Some I've just started learning a tiny bit, so I don't know that much other than introduce yourself, say you would like some water, say you would like this, very basic. And then there's other languages that I minored in college, or ones that I took several years of in adult continuing education class, or ones that my best friend, her family only speaks Spanish, so when I was much younger, that's all I spoke with in them, and I've forgotten so much of everything. And so I've discovered that I really need to spend more time in that. It's not, I believe it'll be something that I can regain fairly easily, but it's not something that, it's not riding a bicycle, at least to me. As I'm getting older, stuff is getting harder for my mind to recall, and so I've found that I need to cut out some other, Netflix or podcast watching and stuff like that, and spend a lot more time on my languages, because that's really where my heart is. And I have been actually researching and trying to find out if there's some kind of career path that I could go with that. Is there somewhere I can go and get to speak and practice the 9 languages all the time? And so, long story with that, this is called Mornings in Paris, and so I wanted to practice my French while I was spinning this. So j'ai regardé un film français called I don't know the word for spinning. When I was spinning this, if any of you speak French and know the word for spinning, because I minored in French in college, and I was not spinning or knitting at that time, so that was not part of anything that I ever learned vocabulary-wise. And it was definitely not taught to me in any of my college courses. So if you speak French and you know the word for spinning, I would love to know that. But yeah, I watched a French film while I was spinning, and it was good. It was good to get back into doing that, but I realized, like, oh man, I don't know a lot of what they're saying, which is not a spot that I want to be at. I really want to be at to where I can watch the movies in the languages I study without subtitles. So yeah. But all of that was a very long story to talk about languages, which is something I love. I've often thought that it would be fun to have a language learning podcast where I got on and talked about different languages and taught people words and stuff like that. But I have to be honest with myself that I don't have time to do that right now. So I think that's everything as far as fiber craftiness goes. I am very excited to say that I have caught up on all of my Ravelry messages. I had a ton, and I had big goals for this week because we'd had visitors for a while and I hadn't been on Ravelry at all. So I had these enormous goals for myself, and they kind of fell by the wayside because of busyness. But I did get one of them done, which was to get my Ravelry inbox down to 0. So if you were waiting for a message from me, then yeah, you should have had one too. Hopefully, I think there were none that just got accidentally saved and didn't get replied to, but I replied to a whole bunch of those. And then now for this next little bit before I go, I'm hoping to reply a lot to the Ravelry board. I didn't even get to post the episode from last week. I'll post it along with this one. And just became this thing in my mind that, like, I hadn't posted it, and I was like, you need to post that. And then I would forget, or we'd be running around all day, and then I would say, you didn't post that, and be like, oh, it's too late now. And it just, anybody with anxiety stuff knows how stuff can become bigger than it is. Like, it's just posting an episode to Ravelry, but in my brain it became like this big, like, mountain that made me like, I can't do it. So I will post it with this one, or my husband might post it with it onto Ravelry for me to kind of help me out with that, because he's offered to go on the Ravelry board and kind of read off some messages and stuff to me so that I can kind of help my anxiety over stuff. But yeah, there's also some drawings that ended in that I'm going to be locking them as soon as I finish recording, and I will draw for those and I will tag the winners. But I'm going to be gone, so I won't be able to mail those off right away. And there's still like 2 other things that I need to mail internationally, because I have this problem where I keep adding to the packages, and then it takes forever for them to, get shipped off. But I'm going to the retreat, and I'm like, oh, I could add even more. I could get them like some, tough woolens. I bet they would love to try that. They're international. They probably have never had it. So it just becomes all these ideas in my head. And so I hope to get those mailed off when I get back from the retreat and everything, so you guys can have those. And then I hope to also get a prize for you guys at the retreat, so that I can kind of share a bit of that with you. And if you're going to be at the retreat, please come say hi to me, even if I'm like alone, hiding in my own little corner somewhere. My personality is not the type that's going to be like in a big group up dancing and being silly or being loud. I'm kind of, that even saying that makes me feel a little anxious. I'm not going to be in big crowds. I tend to kind of keep it calm and low key. It's just more my personality. But please, if you see me, definitely know you can come over and say hi, because I like company. I just don't like big crowds. So yeah. But that is everything as far as the group news goes. There's still, the Open Skies yarn will be open for a couple more days, then I'll close it for while I'm gone. I don't think I'm gonna bring any yarn to the retreat to try to sell there. I know a lot of people do that. They'll bring some of their yarn even if they're not vending to try to get money, like sell some yarn and then they use that money at the market, which is a great idea, but I I don't know that I feel comfortable like going around being like, hey, you want to buy some yarn? But yeah, I'm really excited. There's a friend that I haven't gotten to see in a while that I'm going to get to see there, so it's just going to be wonderful. And then the last thing for today is the book. And I've been reading a ton lately. I've just been really loving the world that stories can put you in and the magical places you can find yourself, and just kind of getting immersed. And so I had some different book choices for this week, and it was a really hard decision because I've kind of been taking myself on a Phantom of the Opera journey, because I have this book that I got from the Owl Crate, which is like a thing where you get a book and some goodies, and it's called Roseblood, and it's a retelling of the Phantom of the Opera. And I had never seen the movie, I've never seen the play, never read the book, and a lot of people, I got a lot of comments from people that they didn't know there was a book. But there is, and it was before the plays, before the movies, everything. It was written in 1909, I believe, and it is 5-star on Goodreads, amazing, wonderful read. It is definitely different from the Andrew Lloyd Webber musical in ways, and I'm just telling you a little bit about it because it's not the book I'm reviewing this week. But if you are a fan of the musical and you have not read the book, I would definitely say read the book. There are some characters that the musical left out that are very interesting. They kind of took a whole bunch of characters and combined them into one person, I guess for just ease of cast things in the musical. But I hadn't read the book, so I read the book, and then after reading the book, I watched the movie, and then now having seen the movie, I don't know anywhere that's showing the play, and I'm going to go try to see the play, but it would be great sometime in the future if I was able to. And then I am going to read the Roseblood book pretty soon, so kind of been immersing myself in the whole Phantom of the Opera, and I have completely fallen in love with going around the house singing to my kids the songs from the musical, and to my husband. I like to take a song and then like mix up the words to a lot of it and then keep some of it the same. Like there's a song called All I Ask of You. So I was like telling my husband in bed, I was like, I'm not going to sing it, and I'm not going to remember exactly what I said, but he'll normally read to me a little bit from a book before bed, and I was like, can you read me a page or two? That's all I ask of you. And so, but I was like singing it, and my son and I were going around singing opera style, and if I'm not nervous and I'm by myself, I can really belt it out, because I did acting plays in high school, and I did musicals and stuff, and my son was like, you should have been in the opera, Mommy, you're amazing. I was like, well, thanks. That's another career path open to Mommy. But yeah, it was a lot of fun getting to go around the house, and my son's so sweet and so complimentary, so it was fun. But that's not the book, but just kind of 2 books for the price of 1 this week. So the book is by Kurt Vonnegut, and it's Sirens of Titan. And this has been on my shelf for a while. I had this period where my friend Melissa introduced me to Vonnegut, and I fell down the rabbit hole hard and majorly in love, and just started reading everything. I loved his black humor. I love how he was kind of like saying, oh, everything's hopeless, but let's laugh while I tell you this. So it was like this dark humor, but it was just talking about these things that seemed very sad, but in such a comical way that it didn't bring you down, but kind of vindicated what you believed about a lot of things. And so I read a lot of his books, but I hadn't read this. There's a couple I haven't read. And so this it's definitely not my favorite of his books, but it was a really good one. So I'll just read you the back. The Sirens of Titan is an outrageous romp through space, time, and morality. The richest, most depraved man on earth, Malachi, I'm not going to get his name right, Malachi Constance, is offered a chance to take a space journey to distant worlds with a beautiful woman at his side. Of course, there's a catch to the invitation, and a prophetic vision about the purpose of human life that only Vonnegut has the courage to tell. Sorry, I don't know where that came from. But this book it sounds kind of deceptive, right? Like the whole depraved man and the beautiful woman and the sirens. It sounds like it will kind of be very much heavy on the depraved, and it's not at all really. Like there's very little talk of that. It's just very weird. I can see, like, if somebody told me that Haruki Murakami, who is a Japanese author whose books are also very weird, if somebody told me like that he had read a lot of Vonnegut before he started writing, I would completely believe that. And it's just about this man who his wife has kind of been having to put up with him for years, and the fact that he and his dog can travel around space and they rematerialize every 59 days or something in different spots. He comes back to Earth every 59 days, but then he's there for like 2 hours and he goes somewhere else. So he's constantly jumping to all these different planets, even, you know, made up ones. But whenever he comes back, because he's been all around the universe, he has these like prophetic visions of this is going to come to pass. And so since he's never in one space for very long, and he's kind of an image of himself, even because he never materializes fully because he's there so shortly, he and his wife don't really have a relationship. She just kind of is the wealthy woman living in his castle because he's super wealthy as well. And so there's this man and the depraved one who, he's kind of the playboy, very wealthy, and he is invited to come and see the guy materialize, and the man tells him, you will end up married to my wife and happy. And he's like, and he says, how is that possible? You know, and it kind of comes to pass in this weird, crazy way of all these different things meeting, and the planet Mars and a Martian invasion of Earth and all this different stuff. And I don't really like sci-fi, but I wouldn't call this sci-fi. I would just kind of call it goofy. So that's probably a very odd description of it, but if any of that sounded appealing to you, then definitely go check it out. I would imagine that your library would be a very good source to find Vonnegut, because his writing is not going to be the new hot book that you have to wait on the list for forever to get. And so the book this week, last time, is The Sirens of Titan by Kurt Vonnegut. And then if you haven't read The Phantom of the Opera, go read it. It's so hauntingly beautiful and amazing, and it's one of those books I was just so caught up in it. I did listen to it on audiobook, or you can get it on I think it might be on LibriVox. Since it was written so long ago, it is in the public domain, and it is a French book. I would love to listen to that or read it in French. That might be one of my goals as I try to get more into my languages. And I also wanted to say, because practicing languages, if any of you know any podcasts or anything like that that are done in other languages, I should say the 9 that I know or am practicing, but of course I speak English, but then French, Russian, Spanish, Japanese, American Sign Language, and then, oh my gosh, my brain, Italian, German, and Chinese. Those last 3 are very, very beginner status. I was trying to communicate with someone on Instagram in German, hi if you're watching, and they sent me a very long message in German, and I just got so overwhelmed because I had no idea about 90% of it. I know very basic German, and I can kind of understand a little bit more than I can speak, but it's very basic, and my Italian is fairly basic as well. So definitely room for improvement. That's the thing I love about languages, is the more I learn, the more I know, and the more I can converse with other people. I do wish that I lived in a city where there was just a prevalence of tons of different languages, but you know, there's always traveling and going to see places. Hopefully someday I will get to go travel somewhere where I can use my languages, because I've never really been outside of the country much, but in the meanwhile, I'm super blessed in that there is the internet, and that's an amazing resource that people didn't have decades ago, that they couldn't, you know, if you didn't get to travel, you didn't get to really have discussions with people in other languages. So I'm really hoping to kind of cement my thing of a polyglot and practice a lot and become fluent in these languages and just work really hard towards that goal, because I love it, and I love, you know, getting to meet new people and new cultures. It's one of my greatest passions, and it makes me really feel happy. So anyways, tangent about languages. And that is all I have for this week, and until next time, I hope you guys have a wonderful week and you get to do all the things you love. Okay, bye guys.